Hey,
Yeah,
you ever wonder why we're here?
because the research commission sent us.
No, I mean, our mission is to protect the ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, wasn't the New World around for like ever before we showed up?
What's your point?
Then doesn't that mean that this ecosystem was doing fine long before we ever showed up? I mean, look at this place. You don't get giant forests like this in a few decades. This shit's been around and stable for centuries. What is there for us to protect here? I mean, yeah, there's elder dragons coming and going, but haven't they been doing that for as long as we've known about them? Why would that suddenly start causing problems as soon as we show up? I don't know, man. It just makes me wonder if we're really here to protect this place as it is, or if we're just selfishly trying to shove ourselves into this foreign ecosystem while claiming that.
Never did like that cunt anyway.
I want you to imagine that you're hanging out with an annoying girlfriend. She's constantly doing all these teensy little annoying things, each one adding to the pile of frustration until it becomes a bullshit mountain of sanity decimating proportions. But you endure all her stupid shit because you know that when you're hate fucking her throat raw later that night, the nut will be all the sweeter for it. That's basically what it's like to play Monster Hunter World. You spend 20 plus minutes hunting down a monster, running into constant little frustrations and annoyances, but you keep on doing it because taking that fucking cunt down makes it all worth it in the end. It really is a pretty questionable formula, but clearly it's one that works because it brought me back for over 150 hours of game time. But let me back up for a second and say this is the first Monster Hunter game I've ever played. Mostly due to the fact that this is the first to be on the one true platform of choice. But because it's the first I've ever played, I have no clue whether everything I'm about to bitch about and call shitty design was a thing in previous games as well. So let me just preemptively say that if it was like this in previous games, that I really don't give a shit, and it doesn't change the fact that it's shitty design and a bad idea. The fact that it was like this in previous games just makes it lazily copy-pasted shitty design. And now that I've got that out of the way and I've annoyed all the Monster Hunter fanboys, let me explain myself by recounting my experiences playing this game. Game starts, cutscene plays, I make my character a trap, obviously. We play through the tutorial, they finally let me choose my weapon.
But they'll never take our freedom!
And then I start beating the shite out of monsters with a giant fucking bagpipe and never stop. But despite the hilarity of systematically depopulating an entire biome with a murderous instrument, honestly I found the first couple hours to be kinda boring. Part of that is that the first few monsters they throw you against are pretty uninteresting, but there's definitely a part of me that found the actual tracking part of the hunt to be boring as well. Sure, the environment was pretty, the map was well laid out, and they really did a damn good job of populating the area with small animals and insects that it actually felt alive. But that was all just window dressing to distract from the fact that you're just following a glowing line to the actual reason that you're there. Honestly, I almost stopped playing the game during those first few hours because of that. Yeah, the fights were fun once you got to them, and wandering around the biomes was relaxing, and there was a certain catharsis to be found in murdering the local wildlife so that I could wear their flesh on my next hunt to kill their brethren like a governmentally funded Ed Gaines, but something about it just hadn't clicked with me yet. Over time though, it did all finally snap into place and I actually really started to enjoy myself. You know, it's kinda hard to say exactly when that happened, but it was around the time that I made it into my two favorite areas in the game. The Coral Highlands and the Rotten Vale. Now maybe it's just because I'm a sucker for aquatic and necromantic looking environments, but I really like the Coral Highlands and the Rotten Vale. Admittedly, all the areas in the game are very well designed, with plenty of little details to make them feel alive, but I mean the first two areas in the game are a forest and a desert, and no amount of good level design is going to stop those from feeling a little bit bland and a little bit generic. But these two areas in particular just felt totally alien, and it really was a breath of fresh air that pretty seriously contributed to me sticking around. That said, good level design alone cannot carry a game, and while there is plenty of design choices that I will bitch and moan about here in just a few paragraphs, I do have to admit that there is some good design going on behind the scenes. One that I've already mentioned is all the little details that make each area feel alive. There's insects crawling along the ground, lizards that scamper away when you get close, peaceful herbivores grazing in the fields, fish swimming around in the water, and birds that will fly away when you get close. They obviously put a huge amount of effort into making each area feel like an actual breathing ecosystem, A lot more than any other game I've seen, and I fucking love this. Even the big guys that you're sent into these biomes to murder have had a lot of effort put into their AI. You know, you can follow them around, they'll drink water, they'll go to sleep, and they'll even attack and eat the smaller animals that are wandering around. But probably the most impressive thing is the turf wars that can trigger when two of these big old beasties encounter each other out in the wild. These are genuinely awesome and a fucking joy to watch whenever they happen. But now that I've tickled the game's taint and stroked its shaft for a few minutes, let's finish things up with some ball-busting anal annihilation. I know I just spent the last couple minutes singing the praises of the Coral Highlands, but around the time you get to them is also around the time that the game's little annoyances start to pile up. The biggest of which being this game's fascination with overly long animations, the asinine way you have to use items, and the fucking shit dodge mechanics. I mean, why is it so hard to just make a good dodge mechanic? Why do we have to have some arcane 2-dodge system? Just do what fucking Dark Souls does and give us a single dodge with some iframes in the middle instead of giving us a shitty little dodge roll with basically no iframes that's just there to fuck with Dark Souls players like me, and then have the real dodge be a fucking invincible Superman dive that you can only do under certain circumstances that comes with its own overly long animation that you can be hit coming out of before you have another chance to dodge. I should not have to worry when I dodge about whether or not I'm going to get the real dodge that will save my ass or the shitty little dodge roll that will mean I'm almost guaranteed to get hit. I mean, maybe it's my fault for expecting them to have actually learned something from other games with dodge mechanics, and maybe it's my fault for expecting them to not go full retard with your only fucking form of defense, but this is one of the most annoying things in the whole game, especially since basically all of the late game enemies have at least one attack that you practically need the fucking Superman dive to avoid. But the annoyance doesn't stop there. If you do get hit and you need to heal, then you have to first sheath your weapon and then go through another overly long animation as your character casually drinks his fucking Sunny D in the middle of a heated battle. I get that it can't just be an instantaneous thing with little to no risk to the player, but even in a game like Dark Souls, it doesn't take this fucking long. Especially when you consider that you don't have to add more time to the animation by sheathing your weapon first. But it's like one of the game designers just fucking got his rocks off by making shit clunky. You want to drink a potion? You can't just drink it, you gotta sheath your weapon first. You want to pop a pill? Gotta sheath your weapon. Want to put on some protective gear? Gotta sheath your weapon. Want to tell your cat to use one of its abilities? Gotta sheath your weapon. You want to sprint? Gotta sheath your weapon. You want to do a jump attack? You gotta sheath your weapon so you can first sprint off the edge and then jump. You want to pick something up off the ground? You gotta sheath your weapon. You want to interact with something in the environment? You gotta sheath your fucking weapon. It is a ridiculous and unnecessary step that has no reason to exist besides some jackass designer getting off to the idea of me being annoyed by it. Oh, but there's still more to come from a friendly frustration fetishist. Anytime you do anything, there's an animation that's just a bit too long. Sometimes this is a harmless, if mildly annoying, time waste, like when you're mining and you get a rare material so your character does an animation that's multiple times longer than normal. But on other occasions, it can get you killed. To give you an idea of the bullshit I'm talking about, let me present you with a scenario. Let's say you latch onto an enemy to wound a limb, which will then toss you off in a direction you can't control once your character has gotten the wound off. And the way it tosses you just so happens to put you in the way of an attack that you can't dodge because you're in a recovery animation for landing on the ground. So you get hit by the enemy attack and their attack knocks you down. But as you're getting up, they start winding up another attack, and before you have control of your character, but after your iframes have worn off, you get hit again, which causes you to faint. But thankfully, you have your cat equipped with the ability that gives you one free revive, so your cat teleports to you and starts the extremely long animation to revive. But as your character is doing his dumbass thumbs to camera to finish the animation, the enemy does another attack and, you guessed it, you no longer have iframes, but you also can't control your character yet, so they hit you and faint you again without being able to do jack shit about it. Now this is an extreme example, but the fact that it is even within the realm of possibility perfectly highlights my issues with this game's animations. And just in case you think I'm a liar, here is an example of a death by frame trap. Now, as you can probably imagine, this shit can get really frustrating because you're not failing out of a lack of skill here. You're failing because the game decided to fucking frame trap you into a death. It doesn't help that some of the hitboxes in this game are kinda fucked as well. So there's times where you'll get hit by an attack that really shouldn't have hit you, which then sends you into one of the goddamn bullshit frame traps, and you lose one of your attempts because the game decided it wanted to fuck your tight virgin butthole into submission. Okay. I'm calm. Now, before I close out this video, let me mention one more game design choice that, while annoying, at least has some interesting implications. While there is no friendly fire in this game, if an ally gets hit with your swing, then it will cause them to stagger and drop whatever attack they were currently doing. And considering that basically every weapon in this game is anime levels of ginormous, this basically makes it impossible for more than one person to attack any given body part at a time, and can occasionally cause you to completely miss a damage window while a monster is down because an ally wasn't paying attention to their positioning and spent the whole time stun locking you while they went to town on the monster right next to you. However, once you know that this is a thing, you can work around it without too much issue, and it does allow for some interesting tactics such as this.
Alright, throw me. Yeah! I love that.
But, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, all this frustration makes the act of taking down your quarry all the sweeter. I just don't know if it's all worth it in the end. At the time of writing, I'm about 150 hours in, and I've been into the end game for about 35 hours of that. But I can already tell that this is a game that I will probably stop playing, not because I get bored or run through everything it has to offer, but because it's pissing me off more than it should. Sure, it feels great to take down an asshole of a monster after you got royally destroyed on your last attempt, but I'm starting to feel that all the little annoyances and frustrations leading up to it aren't worth it anymore. I'm to the point that, unless I'm fighting some easy monsters, I can't really play this game solo anymore because all the annoyances I listed above just compound that much quicker without other people around. And I find that genuinely disappointing, because I do get some real enjoyment from the hunting gameplay, and I generally like the end game and the way that you make builds. But eventually the frustrations will get to be too much and I won't be able to play it anymore. Or the other option is that the people I play with will stop playing and I'm left with either experiencing the frustrations of solo play or dealing with the public lobby potluck. So, quick addition by present me to the past me who wrote all this up. My hypothesis that I would stop playing this game because it pissed me off too much was 100% accurate. I got up to about 180 hours of game time before I stopped because all the annoyances I listed above reached an aneurysm-inducing critical mass that no amount of masturbation could absolve. Anyway, back to the conclusion. There's a lot more things that I had planned to bitch about when I was planning this video. Weapon sharpness, the retarded multiplayer system, expedition monsters leaving, how long it takes to get to the interesting parts of build creation, the absolutely atrocious story, the characters so forgettable that most of them don't even have real names, the defender weapons and armor making it pointless to make anything else until you're in the master rank hunts. I mean, the list goes on. But ultimately it just comes down to this. I did have a lot of fun playing this game, and I found it very enjoyable to just wander around the world and take down whatever monsters I saw. Yet I really can't recommend this game to anyone who doesn't have friends to play it with, and even if you do, I really don't know that all the little annoyances that you'll have to deal with will be worth it in the end.